Hi, this is UK GKTV, and this is a Sunday supplement, really, isn't it?
It is, mate. We've got a special person with us today.
Yeah,
one of the old crew.
we're still in the Rachel's Inner Sanctum because there was a painting club outside. We started in here, and basically we're surrounded by goodies, hundreds of models. Everything from Only Fools and Horses to Aliens to American Werewolf in London, Blade. Everything around us is like what the inner kid inside us all absolutely still love. Brilliant, and one of the things about garage kits to me is it kind of unearths a series of memories in some cases, but also a series of strong emotional feelings that you have about particular times in your life. And for a lot of us in the garage kit hobby, the hobby for me started at perhaps a difficult time in my life when I was looking for something beyond work. I think that was what it was. And I'd always been a kit maker, Airfix when I was a kid and stuff like that. And I think I was looking for something new, and I picked up an AMT Vulcan shuttle, and I'd made this kit, this styrene kit, and I thought, well, this is all very well and good, but
where's the monsters?
Where's Spock? Basically, I've got the shuttle, I've got the Enterprise. Where's Spock? And I was just saying, I lived in Stoke-on-Trent at the time. I lived in Burslem. I used to go into Hanley. Hanley was the happening place.
Is it Burslem or Buslam?
Buslam.
Depends where you're
from. But I used to go into Hanley, and where was it? Fantasy
World. Gaz this is Gaz Wildgoose, by the way. Gaz was one of the first guys. Sorry, Gaz, but I don't know how I met Gaz, but he'll probably tell me. He'll tell me in a minute. But Gaz was one of the crew, as our crew. We used to do one of the biggest shows, it was the biggest show of memorabilia. So Gaz used to help us for his sins. How we didn't get killed, how we didn't get battered, or how we didn't get sued is beyond me. But we did. We managed, and I'm liking this sitting in the middle because that microphone's covering my belly. So I'm looking like a young Burt Reynolds.
I'm just on a low chair, mate. Yeah. So I'm the low camera angle.
This is Gaz because his memory's better than mine. It's not quite as many years as me. He'll remember the old memro days. All you new guys won't remember it, but there's some hardcore that do. Where did I meet you guys?
Where did I meet you? So,
is it clean, this story, by the way?
It is very clean. Okay, it's all good. So, yes, it was way back now. So, just going back to a bit what Bill was saying, I think when you see all this stuff, it does take you straight back to your childhood.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's what clicks. It was always clicked with me. I remember the first model kit I ever got, and it was bought by my granddad at the time, and we were away on holiday in a place called Filey near Whitby.
Filey.
And there was a little tiny model shop there years ago, and he took me in there with all intents to buy a little tank model. He was quite into his military stuff, so he wanted to buy a little tank model I could build in the caravan while we were away.
How old were you guys?
I would be 7 or 8.
Wow.
So that was, I'm 53 now, so you get the gist of that one. So while we were in the model shop, the tanks they were all good, but there was one kit up on the back of the shelf, and if I remember rightly, I think Aurora made it, and it was Dracula. It was a Dracula kit with a tree with a little battle.
It's definitely the Aurora monsters.
Yes.
And it was like the second one they produced after the Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's got the medallion on, hasn't he? He's got the medallion, you got the tree, and it had that beautiful base with like the terrain base.
Yes. Loved it.
And it was probably, I don't know what colour, it was probably black. But you could get a glow version.
Yes, no, mine was the good old standard version.
But you got glow-in-the-dark versions a couple of years later when they relaunched them, and the hands and the face and the bats were made of like luminous plastic.
Yes,
but classic kit, mate.
Loved it. So I spent some time in the caravan building this Batman kit, and when it was finally finished, I remember putting it in my bedroom in the caravan, and it frightened me so much.
The Dracula kit frightened the hell out of me.
It frightened me so much, I had to move it back out and put it in the box till we went home. But there was something about the scariness of it that I loved. Yeah. It was like a bit of a roller coaster, the kind of horror kits. And then got into watching Hammer horror films with my grandma, scaring herself to death. And And then, weirdly, then it expanded from horror into kind of monsters where...
You're a monster guy, aren't you?
I love my monsters.
You're a monster guy.
Horror and monster stuff is my thing, but I remember watching, for anybody that's, again, we're talking old school again here, but the Saturday morning swap shop on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I always found if you turned over to BBC Two at the time, you could always catch a monster film, which was Godzilla, like obviously 54 Godzilla,
the original Godzilla.
Gorgo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All
Behemoth.
Yes, the
Behemoth.
Is it 20 million miles to Earth?
20 million. The Emir from 20 million. Yeah, Harryhausen.
I would sit staring at that,
British
absolutely
Lions. Yeah.
glued, until Dad came in and put Grandstand on and ruined it.
Yeah.
But so always been into my monsters, fascinated by how they created them, how they made them move, every part of it, and didn't really touch a model kit again till I was sort of mid-teens. And I went to a place I lived in Bakewell in Derbyshire at the time, and I used to go to Sheffield, the biggest,
Space Centre.
Sheffield Space Centre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And started to see that they'd started to make model kits of these various characters that I'd grown up with. And
what was out at the time, Gaz? What they give you a timestamp on?
So I'm going to be. This is 1985.
So what times? What would be on the shelf?
So they in the Space Centre there was the Horizon model kits.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right.
A lot of superhero based model kits, all vinyl. Literally no
vinyl
resin.
Was popular back
it was
then,
weird, wasn't it? It went from
vinyl.
styrene to vinyl, didn't it?
Really did. There was. I can't think of a resin kit that was in there. It was all vinyl.
In terms of manufacturing, vinyl is if you're going to make kits in pieces, vinyl is, in terms of manufacturing, is a convenient process because it simulates in sort of like injection molding.
Yes.
But it's like you say, it's cheaper. It's easier to build, even if you can't buy the actual rotating machines.
Yeah.
You can actually build one yourself. Not that I've ever tried.
The old school kits, some of the bags were difficult to build, and I think
the resin ones.
So there was the vinyl.
Oh, the vinyl.
So I there was the Horizon ones, and there was the Screaming kits.
Screaming was mine. Yeah.
Screaming were there was a Leatherface, a Freddy,
Leatherface,
Suburban Commando, which was always
why
was a strange one for me, and the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
The Rocketeer, it was quite popular.
That backpack never used to fit on that.
Never, no. But none of the bits fitted really well, did they? Because the problem is with vinyl kits is you can put together a really good set of accurate moulds, and once you've got the cooling process and all the rest of it out of the way, you've got they shrink back and they change shape and stuff like that.
And
They're warped.
And you had to put plaster of Paris in them, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Lead shot.
Yeah, but that gives the viewers a time stamp on when you first got into it, because you kind of got back into it like me, round about the Screaming time and the Horizon time, but then festering behind the scenes was the resin revolution one. Remember, me and you used to rave about them.
Well, this is how I came to meet you, I think, because strangely, I did buy at the time. They were quite expensive, and when I was 15, there were a lot of money, these kits, and I bought Horizon Carnage. At the shop.
Yeah.
One of the hardest kits I've ever built.
Was it that one?
Yeah. And to this day, I still think that was one of the hardest ones to get together. So I bought that and carried on building small kits. And I moved from Derbyshire up to Staffordshire. And I remember there was a magazine at the time called Model and Collector's Mart.
Yeah,
which was like the kit Bible at the time. It was the only place to see kits.
Was that once a week?
I think
Was it once a week? I think it was once a month. Was it or week?
Was
it every 2 weeks?
It might have been bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, wasn't it?
I know it was quite regular.
That was the point. But he was finding it.
We were lucky. We
were as well. Yeah.
Oh right,
yeah. We could get it quite easily.
Right. No, because I had to go to Birmingham to visit and I'd buy loads of back issues and look through it, and then like salivate about all the only place to buy.
There was no internet. You had to have a physical.
There's a place in Liverpool that used to sell it. There's a Liverpool shop.
Another World, Fantasy
World. The World. They used to sell it, and that place in Hanley,
Fantasy World
in Hanley, and also there was a place. I used to occasionally go in the national coach into Manchester, and there was it Forbidden Planet? In the Corn, was it the Corn Exchange or the it was in the Corn Exchange building.
There was Forbidden Planet, and there was the one on Deansgate.
Manchester Models.
Models.
Now that was good Manchester Models because they sold absolutely everything. You could get a tank, you could get a monster,
You could get my stuff because
yeah.
I used
Yes,
to
you
sell
could.
it. That's where we used to go, didn't we?
So
Well, we nearly got killed several times.
Lots of times. There's been more than that one as
But
well.
how did I actually meet you?
So this is becoming a long story, isn't it?
Yeah.
I moved up to Cheshire, Model and Collectors Mart, and for some reason, I think you had a private ad in there, and you lived in Crewe at the time.
I did.
And I thought, oh, this guy sells monster kits, and it was a rarity that you never find anybody doing it. And you were selling a kit at the time that I fancied having a go at.
Which was?
Do you know what? What was the first one? It was probably either a JD kit or a dimensional kit, maybe dimensional designs kit.
Right, okay.
And I drove up to Crewe to meet you, and you had your worldly wares all in a shed on your drive.
Oh, right. I remember now. Yeah.
And that's how we met. And I think you went.
We used to have a shed, and I'd have shelves in there, and I used to go to Forbidden Planet in London, and then I'd trade kits. And then he came, I remember now, and we used to have a big garage, wasn't it? It's like a garage, wasn't it? So we'd go down, and it'd be like, oh yeah, because you could never used to see them.
You couldn't see these things, you couldn't hop on YouTube and see reviews or this kind of thing.
My ex-father-in-law used to run a thing called Milhome Models, which made trains and planes, and he was a short-run manufacturer, and his industrial complex, was in fact 2 rented garages that he'd taken the front off and put like a UPVC window in, and everything behind there was like a little office, and then a manufacturing facility, and then a back room which was just full of stuff, and that was how it went. And he obviously sold rail order. He obviously did like shows, but most people were like knocked on the door. Oh, come in, Bert. What do you want? I want a Messerschmitt 109 or whatever. It was like that. I mean, it's the same thing. And because I was into the military before I got into the monsters.
I always used to. It sounds bad now because you liked it, but I always remember when you used to get Model and Collectors Mart, you'd always skip through all the military stuff.
I'll go to the back. You'd go
pages.
to the back because you'd get a tank any day, couldn't you? But you couldn't necessarily get an alien, and that was my first. It was a Billiken.
It was the big guys in them days with Gary Wilson.
Yeah.
Tony James.
Yeah. Comic Miniatures and Star Wars Emporium.
And then he was Gary Elliott around? He was, wasn't he, in them days? Mooncrest. Was it Mooncrest?
Mooncrest still going?
Yeah, Mooncrest. Gary's still going. Yeah, good guy, Gary.
He does the Martian stuff and the First Man in the Moon. And
that's it, yeah.
They're really
lovely.
They're fantastic kits.
I remember seeing Gary when we went down. He used to we used to cross paths in Tony James. He was a character.
Yeah. Most of the companies were all kind of southern. Obviously we're up north, and it was a lot of the big shops were down south. So London and Comet and Forbidden Planet.
Can you remember a company called Beyond 1,000 Dreams? That was up in Durham. There, they were the first guys that fetched in John Wright stuff. John Wright stuff, and resin from the grave stuff was gas, wasn't it? Resin from the grave was. It was a lot to be desired, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's so different nowadays.
But you knew...
We never complained, though, did we?
Because you knew you were buying a kit like that, and you knew it was a short-run kit. You knew it was resin, or whatever it was made out of, toffee, whatever. And you knew that it was going to be hard to build.
Yeah.
And it's like you pick up an ordinary styling kit, and it says 6 years and upwards. Or 8 years and upwards, or advanced modeler. Well, every resin kit, even if it was just made of one piece, because you were filling so many air holes anyway, bit of putty. Every kit was for an advanced modeller.
Yeah,
but you never considered yourself as an advanced modeller.
You
just thought you just bought it, and you started at that point. It's like me discovering. It's like me when I first got my first vinyl kit. I had some Airfix glue. And I tried to glue it together with Airfix glue, and nobody told me there's nowhere to go. There's no internet.
No.
And then I rang up my mate, and he said, "Not super glue stuff that you can get sticks your fingers. Well, you need that, mate, and keep your fingers out the way." And that was my training.
I remember that the first one. I did same as you. Used the good old Airfix. It was Airfix glue, and quickly, if you remember one in the
Britfix.
Way back, do you remember Zappa Gap?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember Zappa Gap.
That was the first proper glue
Zappa
I used. I remember gluing myself.
Because that expanded slightly, didn't it? To fill the seams,
which you needed to quite a lot.
Needed to, even on an Airfix kit.
I think we were in awe of the Americans, weren't we, at the time? It was like, because I think it's slightly exotic in it. I remember I made the journey to Chile, and Gaz will probably remember this. It was a company called the resonator. Remember him? And he'd done like a Glenn Strange tribute. He'd done like a Tingler. He'd done like a Tingler, and he'd done several. Now, we were in awe of these guys.
I loved the Tingler.
Oh yeah, we were in awe of these guys, and you never seen these. You never seen these kits.
In the UK, you would
it's
see them.
rare, wasn't it? So I remember going to Chile and getting off, and this guy, I met up with this guy, and he said, "Oh, you know, I know the resonator. I do apologise, I forgot the guy's name, but he said, "Oh, you know, I've got, you know, I know him. I'll take you around." And I was like, "I'm gonna get a Glenn Strange and a Tingler. Wow. I'm going to actually get one." And the excitement was building up inside me.
Yeah.
And it was just like the movies. It was like Halloween. It was autumn. It was leaves were on the ground. We go to this guy's house, and he looks like Dean Martin. He's like an aging Dean Martin. He's got like grey hair, and he's sat in this scruffy old leather coat. And I looked round thinking, "Wow, I'm going to see it." And then there was all these broken kits on the shelf, and I thought, "Oh my God, what and that was the guy that made them.
But America, you see, even with mainstream kits like Aurora, they were doing kits which were mainstream in America that we used to go into the back of the model shop and see them on the shelf, like the horror kits, like the flying saucers and all the rest of it, and all the film tribute kits that were mainstream. And when we had, if you think of what we had Frog, we had Airfix. And what they what Airfix always wanted to do was educate you. So you get an Airfix box from the 1970s, and it's a straight up painting of an aeroplane by some fantastic artist. Very, very detailed graphics, very, very simple Airfix logo on it, nice, easy to read writing, and absolutely devoid of any excitement whatsoever.
Yeah, completely.
Right, it was like Commando magazine, like, you know, it's like that. It's straight up. Achtung, you know, that sort of stuff. Whereas you get something down from Aurora, and it'd have the Basil Gogos artwork on the front, and it'd have
always a bit of coloured mist,
bit of coloured mist around it, always a red sky, and you think, what shall I have? Shall I have this really,
very Hollywood,
wasn't
it?
It's like, shall I have this Airfix Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is about that big? Or shall I stagger home with the 20 quid Aurora one? I know, I'll go with the Aurora one. You know,
which was all teeth and
all teeth and
great.
Mechanical. But even so, the Americans didn't seem to want to educate you. They wanted you to have some fun.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Fair enough.
It's because kids don't really want to be educated, because they spend, as I know well, they spend too much time at school anyway.
Rather than being a T-Rex from the Natural History Museum, this was a T-Rex from the movies.
Yeah, it was a Harryhausen T-Rex.
What do you reckon to the shows in them days? Did you go to a lot of the shows?
I went to a lot of them, but they were very mixed, weren't they? Because it was very. I don't want to say it was like forbidden or shady, but it was a little bit.
We were oddity,
it was truly underground. It was underground, wasn't it? It was
we were an oddity,
weren't we? Dave, we were the odd ones out.
But we did well, didn't we? We did really well.
I think that's because we were the odd ones out. We weren't like everything else.
I remember some of that stuff we had. Man of a Thousand Faces.
This was just at a time, I think, where Model and Collector's Mart was on its way out, and you started to see things like Amazing Figure Modeler.
So people, fully glossy magazine,
which was again
popped out, didn't it, on the shelf, and you can get that in WH Smith.
Well, the Collector's Mart again was your Airfix, and now we've got Amazing Figure Modeler, which was glossy,
shiny,
exciting kind of look of lots of things you couldn't get, but you'd love to get.
Have. Yeah.
So when we started doing the show, all the people that read that they've had the contacts at the time to be able to get some of this really rare stuff.
It was now. Can you imagine how much it's worth now?
I would dread to think.
Man of a Thousand Faces.
Dave would get a couple of big boxes just before the show, and me and Dave would be like diving in the boxes because it was.
Can I have that?
Dave?
I don't want to sell this yet. Yeah, it's like
the best Christmas ever.
Yeah, it's
and what was left, we always went to the show.
I remember the story. Right, this is the truth now with Gaz. We got the box in from Sassy's, and it was like 15 Tony McVeigh Frankensteins.
Amazing.
Vinyl. Nobody ever seen that, and I'm like, Jesus. And he went, "Oh my God, that's so good." And it was just hit the shelf on it.
Literally.
And we got it. So he got this big box like this. So we put one on the table, and at the time it was 100 and something, not very much, was it?
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, sorry. I apologise. Neither do I. So we basically put it out for, say, 120 quid.
Yeah,
mate, they flew out, didn't we?
You couldn't.
Just we were 50, and he was doing this, and then at the end of the second box, Gaz looks at me and he goes, "Dave, we've got a problem." And I went, "Oh gosh, Gaz, what's up?" He goes, Are these flowers supposed to go?
He was holding. I think in the resin one, he was holding an ice cream, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
And in the vinyl one that Dave had, they had like a bunch of artificial flowers.
And he put them in the second
whole
box.
lot. And we just found this little bag at the bottom at the end.
The flowers.
Everyone's taking them without the flowers. So, yes.
We were like, holy it was really, really bad. But I remember looking at him and going, what are they off? And he goes, I think they're supposed to be in his hand. And I went, oh my God, Gaz, how many have we sold? He said, oh God.
A lot.
We had some cool stuff, didn't we?
It was amazing because we
had some stuff.
There was cellar cast.
We had cellar cast.
Which was the quality of cellar cast casting back then
amazing.
Was stunning.
Still good.
Stunning.
That was amazing.
Compared to often other
Mental Mischief. Remember that Batman bat?
Yeah.
That was stunning.
I've got that at home.
That was one of the best cast kits ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, I saw yours and I just had to
He said, what's this? And I goes, have a look at this. The casting's amazing. And he went, wow.
It was
and it's that's standard now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, originally you would get kits that, like you said, they're almost like casting honeycomb.
It was like you had to the filling. You'd get some milliput or whatever, or in the end polyfiller as well. So just wipe it over with polyfiller. It's a bit like now if you make the mistake of buying a raw printed kit and you have to polish it with something to get rid of the resolution lines. Back then it was you knew that the prep. And it's good discipline, isn't it? Because you had to prep it. You knew that the bits that linked together weren't going to fit.
Yeah.
So you knew you had to have filler. You knew you had to fill pinholes. You knew it was heavy as hell. I spent a lot of time early on learning how to pin. You know, with little I'd cut up a welding rod.
Yeah.
And get a Dremel and drill, and then put some araldite around it. And then make a plasticine support system and stick the bits together. So it wasn't like a vinyl kit with poly cement where you just stick it all together and it stays. It was one piece at a time.
But what we've got to bear in mind, these pieces that we're doing, even now, aren't mass produced.
No, they're not.
So people expect.
But you get mass production quality to an extent now because people have got wiser to it.
It's a different world with regards to quality.
Yeah.
But again, they still have that.
Organic
I agree. They don't have that air fixed
plastic
feel
bagged
to it.
up.
They still feel like someone sat down and spent time making this.
What was your favourite one from the day, Gaz?
Favourite kit?
Garage kit for the day. From the day when we used to rock up at the shows.
Nightmare of a question.
What did you think to yourself? I'm really glad I got that.
Regardless of quality of casting. Because some were better than others. Because they used to come with the huge pieces of flash that you had to saw off.
Yeah.
So, regardless of casting, there'd be a few. There was Beach Blanket Beast, Jim Groman.
That's great.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Piece.
Yeah.
The Man Back kit, which I didn't have any interest in until Dave showed me. I was like, wow, blown away. That was a great kit, and I've still got that. And I still love the old Future kits.
Yeah. Casting at the first ones was a bit dodgy, wasn't it?
A little bit, yeah. Not the best compared to nowadays. The Swamp Witch Dimensional Designs.
Yeah, lovely that.
Oh yeah.
And probably so many. This is a nightmare. Maybe some of Thomas Kuntz's kits.
Yeah.
Back in the day that I liked. But yeah, there's so many.
Like you, Bill. The kits.
Well, my first and favourite one was Billiken Alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember getting it and putting it together and managing to make it stay together. And I know it's not a very spectacular kit, but you know, you'd think that I was just amazed that a company had taken the time, and it came in like a little box, and it had a photocopy on the cover.
Yeah.
And it just like somebody had thought to themselves in the gap, because I don't know, were Billiken quite a big company, were they?
Not particularly.
They're Japanese, aren't they? They're Japanese. Yeah. And I remember getting it and putting it together, and I remember, and this is kind of brings me into what I do now, is I thought that would look so much better with a backdrop, which would be perhaps like from
it just tended to do the figure, didn't
it? It was just a figure on a base. And
extremely well done.
So back in the day, this was before laser cutters. So I spent ages and ages doing a wall. You know, like out in Aliens where they're in the base on the planet, and there's like a wall which is like it's got like hexagon. It's a grid wall. So I spent ages cutting up Plastistruct. Do you remember it? Plastic
Yeah.
hard,
Plastic-
plastic hard, and Plastistruct, which would give you some little bars and stuff. And I made it. And I spent, a week, maybe 2 weeks in the evenings doing this. But, I'd just gone through my first divorce, so I had plenty of time on my hands. And a mate of mine said, would you do us one? And I thought, oh no, it took me so long.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'd studied sculpture at university, so I thought, I know what I'll do. Go and get some rubber.
I'll make a mould of it.
Make a mould.
Mm.
So I made a mould of the wall, and I got a big chunk of like rubber, and I went out and got some. What's the old stuff? Not polyester. Is it polyester? The cheapest.
Polyester, yeah.
Polyester. Got some polyester. Got some. I think it was like grey powder. The colouring powder. Mixed it up because the polyester resin I got. Because this is how experienced I was. I came back with this polyester resin. It was clear. I came back with clear polyester resin. So I thought I'll put some filler in it. So I filled it with some like grey powder, which I got from a pottery shop. I think it was some. I don't even know what it was. It was like talc or something, grey talc, and I cast it. And of course, it came out. It was beautiful. I thought that's really good. And some mate said, "Oh, my mate saw that the other day." He says, "Can I have one of them?" I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do you another one." I thought I've got a bit of resin left. So before I knew it, I'd made 15 alien walls and they'd gone.
Wow.
But I remember at the time people saying to me, "How much do you want?" I said, "Oh, just give me the money for the resin," because I didn't have any notion that this would be in any way, and so that was the first thing. And then somebody else said blah blah blah, and then I got, because I was into military at the time, and then I started doing bases for tanks, and that diverted me away from the monsters to an extent.
But I remember with Gaz when we used to go out on a Sunday, and I don't know how this happened, but we went out this one Sunday in my little Peugeot. Now it's like Starsky and Hutch, meaning. So we go out. I don't know how it had happened because he wasn't phones in them days. I don't know how it happened. But we arranged to meet this guy in Manchester. You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Yeah.
So we arranged to meet this guy in Manchester, and there's two stories I'm going to remember now. So we arranged to meet this guy in Manchester. So Gaz is sat there with me, and he goes, "Where are you meeting him, Dave?" I said, "Oh, we're meeting him at such and such pub." Now we pulled up at this pub, right, and all the front of it was all people sat there drinking. Now, me and him are sat in the car. Next minute, this really dodgy car pulls up alongside us, and this really dodgy guy gets out, and he looks shady, didn't he? And he gets this box out. So I gets out with this money. He puts the box on the car, and he's counting, and I'm counting this money out, and he's giving me this money. Like, Gaz is going, "Oh my God, was it a rough part of Manchester?
Yeah, it looked like the worst drug deal you've ever seen.
It looked like the worst drug deal ever. So we're doing this and
out of a window,
and all these people are looking at us, and I didn't see this because I was so excited to get this American kit. So I'm counting this cash out. Gaz is sitting there going, "Any minute now, there's going to be a siren here." Yeah. So I gets in, puts this in the boot of the car, gets dead excited, gets in the car, and I goes, "Why, what's up, mate?" He goes, "Dave, it looks like you're buying drugs." Look, this guy walks around the side of my little Peugeot, bangs on the window. He said, "Right, lads, I'll see you later." He said, "I'll put a couple of lads' bags in the box for you as well." Cheers.
Oh God.
As you do.
And we're sitting there going,
"Oh God,
let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, we're driving off now. Don't look at us." Yeah.
I'm not going to tell everyone about Daz, am I? At Leeds.
No. No, we're not doing
that. Dave, he's off the telly. What do you mean? We used to get met. How many car parks did we meet people on? It was loads, wasn't it?
This is making it sound very shady.
It does sound shady, but
that's how it was.
But you were naive enough to just think it's a bit like when we talked about Nick the other day.
Yeah.
He goes, "I'll come round your house and get it," and I'm thinking, do I really want somebody coming round my house to get it? And then he turns up in his Jag and he gets the kit and off he goes. And
but
I'm thinking,
such a niche thing.
Such a niche thing, wasn't it?
It was dodgy.
It was niche thing.
And we went up to Leeds to meet this guy, and he was buying some kits off me. We went up to the football ground, and we're sat in my little car. Daz is sat there. Next minute, this man mountain comes
Huge
walking.
guy.
He was huge, and I went, "Jesus, Dad, look at him!" And he went, "I think that's him." And he would have killed us.
He must have been 7 foot.
He must have been. He walks over to us like that, and we're outside. There's police everywhere.
But think about it. You would travel.
You
would travel 200 miles to pick something up because there just wasn't the infrastructure.
No, it wasn't there.
The memorabilia show was a pure example of that. And I think when Dave used to get these boxes in just before the show, we were, as people who were selling it at the show, we were excited about
Yeah.
it. So the people that were wanted it were
It
buzzing.
was like drug dealing, wasn't it?
We had people travelling from Ireland,
Yeah,
all the
you
way
just
from
fill-
Ireland,
just
just for the
used to fill
show.
the box.
Just fill the bin,
I
yeah.
remember a family who used to come every year to the show, and they would fill like bin bag sized bags with kits because it's the only time you
could
get
get
they'd save all year,
Yeah.
spend all their
Yeah.
kit money
Yeah.
on the kits.
They
and
would,
take-
yeah. They turn up.
And this is why we have wardrobes, lockups, sheds full of kits we will never build
Oh, it's
because
amazing.
you
Good now.
see one and you think to yourself, gonna have that because I'm never gonna see it again. And then 10 years later you go, oh, I remember that. And it's still in the box in pieces. But you can't stop it. You can't stop.
And the
Everyone's
good
an
thing was,
addict.
you probably wouldn't have seen another one in 10
You
years.
wouldn't
either,
have seen
so
another
people
one.
Still
No,
want
so
them.
you still have them. Yeah.
These original kits.
The amount of deals we did on car parks is unbelievable.
There was no other way. Again, there was no internet to do
There's
it.
no
on.
internet.
There was the phone, and then you'd have to go and meet somewhere.
Did you go to see Wigan Dave with me? Wigan Dave.
Wigan
Wonder
Dave.
where he came from.
I've heard the Wigan down.
Wigan
We were
Dave.
in Leeds. We did.
Yeah.
Went down south. We went down to London to Forbidden Planet on trips and Comet. We were up at Leeds.
Comet was bad.
I think
wasn't
it just happened to meet in Leeds a lot because it was right outside the Leeds
Yeah,
football
this
ground.
time- this
shop.
time-
He's at Leeds. That's your
Leeds, yeah.
team now.
This,
Yeah.
this,
It's
this
his
time,
team.
I've got to tell you
Leeds.
this. I'm sorry, I'll keep it clean. When we were at Ellen Road and this giant of a man came over, only he could do this. No one else. This giant was walking towards us and he goes, Dave, he's massive. Be careful. I gets out. Daz, yeah, lovely fella. Really, really,
really
really,
nice
really,
guy.
really nice. Comes over, gives me a load of money. All these coppers outside the football ground are watching us. He's giving me all this money. He goes, and he's looking. I'm looking at him, and he's going. And I was like, "What's up?" And he's going. And I was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "All right." And I went, "All right, mate." Shook him back in the hand. Gets back in the car. He goes, "You haven't shook his hand, have you?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "You know what? He's on life for grime." he used to pick the mug up. And I'm like, so he got an affectionate nickname, which but with some of the things we did was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
I don't know how we got away with it. I'm surprised we're both here, if I'm honest.
But to get it from where, to get it from that point where you just managed to sell a few kits from your, from your garage to where you are now, just kind of shows the popularity of it behind it.
Yeah.
It's just that people didn't see it, people couldn't get hold of stuff.
I think social media, the internet, is revolutionised.
Do we
the hobby,
think
hasn't
it's
it?
for the
You've got-
good, social media?
On the whole, I think it's good because there's hundreds of people that I know now and I've met and I wouldn't know otherwise, and a hobby that I
It's
would
got its
still be
plus.
skirting along the edges of if I didn't
It's
know
got its pluses and negatives, hasn't it?
100%, yeah.
It becomes
50-50.
it promotes the hobby, but it also makes it very tribal, I think.
It does make it very tribal, but I think if you are as selective about your social media as you are about your kids,
Yeah.
because I don't go looking generally for what's going on somewhere else. I just get an inkling of what's going to interest me, and I look for a specific thing. Whereas I think you're right. There's a lot of tribal activity, even within the UK scene as well.
Possibly, yeah.
Because I mean, you're always going to get it when you favour a particular producer.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that kind of feel to it.
It doesn't need to be that way.
It doesn't need to be that way because we're all in a hobby which is always some way. I know it's quite well established, but it's always technically because it's garage kits and it's an underground hobby. It's always sort of under threat, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
From the taxman, from the
IP licensing,
licensing, and all of that.
It's
so
still niche.
It's still niche.
Even now, it's still niche. I would say even a lot of model collectors, do the military stuff.
They
wouldn't be aware of this side of it. Maybe.
No, the amount of people that come here that are like blown away because wow, this is what I want, which is nice. Because the amount of customers I say, well, just come and see me. There was one guy that came the other week and he'd bought them from a third party, and he come in and he was like, Jesus Christ, what's all this? And I was like, well, there's all these, yeah. And it's like when you go to the UK GK show, it's not the biggest show in the world, but there's everything there for you to spend
money on, and
it can't be the biggest show in the world. It's not the most popular.
But it's in the hobby again. Once you're in the hobby, it's a great show to come to, and I think it's difficult. Like I think it will be difficult to get any bigger than it is because it is niche, and you've got to be, like you said, mentioned before with licensing and all the other stuff. it's a difficult one to blow up any bigger without
attracting attention.
Yeah.
So if you want to spend the money, like last year was our best show. It was superb. Did you go last year? You did, didn't you? It was great. It was a great show. Everybody said you did well, and I'm kind of pleased. But it's a community, and it's a community thing, and it saddens me when it gets fractured and people are very tribal, because it doesn't need to be like that, does it?
There's room for everybody.
There is room for everybody.
Nobody
needs. I mean, I don't mean to sound big-headed. I've worked with most of the sculptors, and most of them are really, really nice. And I've fetched a lot of people on, and I've started with new people, and I've sort of pushed them, promoted them. I'm very patriotic. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against people sculpting from the States. Very patriotic, I get a big thrill.
Nice.
It's
to
nice.
have the feeling that it's done here.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. I mean, there's some... don't get me wrong, I'm in awe of the American stuff. I've absolutely, you know, Jaeger and stuff, and John Dennett and all them guys, Nagel, are fantastic. Bowen, they're amazing. Mark Van Time, these guys are amazing. I love it when I get a piece of Darren Kent, Joe Bailey, Andy Copeland, Steve Thompson. When you see something that I think, wow, this is getting the recognition, that it really, really fills me full of joy. And well, it's good. You know, we've got talent over here.
It does feel like it's thriving.
Over here?
At the moment. Yeah, it does. It really does. And at one time, you know, you're always on the lookout for the American kits and stuff. And,
well, you've come today.
It always will be. But
you've come in today. You've come in today, and there's been about 4 pieces, and you've just gone, wow, Jesus, Dave, and it's like,
and it's fantastic sculpting, fantastic production quality, and it's you know, I don't feel the need that I have to go now to get something from the States to get something. I would do.
You would do if you like.
Really
I
don't.
Plus, Donald's put tariffs on us as well.
Tariffs. That's going to be the next big thing, because I mean, my market is the United States.
So I don't know how that's going to work, though, guys. How's that going to work?
I always send it as a gift. When it
so who's going to pay that? Are they going to pay that? Or are we going to pay it?
They're going to pay it when it arrives. They're going to buy it from us and pay us our price. It goes over. So it's like me. I mean, my manufacturer up until recently was in America, and to get my kits back, just like get my kit back, I used to have to go to the post office, pay a tithe already on it, and I used to have to pay something like 10-20%, just to get my own work back, and that was the British government, not the American government.
But just the shipping, is so
costs
as well.
Massive. Shipping
I mean, this is why I've done the deal with Jerry from Resin Crypt, so we've got 10 new pieces, and already they asked you've just said today, oh God, that London After Midnight, Dave. So it helps, guys, and I think the American market, unless we sort things out with the US, which is a shame if we don't, then it is going to make it even worse, isn't it?
It is, but what it will do is it will make people work together more, because you'll say, we'd like that kit, we've got that kit, well, I'll send you this, you can make it in the States, you send me that, we'll make it in the UK. And in a sense, it does encourage that mutual
working
relationship, which once again brings it back to an underground system where we're slightly off the grid, whereas we're doing our own stuff, and you know, we're in our own way, we're sticking it to the man, aren't we?
I've done that I've done that on a couple of occasions, and on the latest occasion, I've got to be honest, Jerry and Lewis are just a joy to work with. I mean, I've never. They're just amazing. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it's difficult, but you've got to get the right connection going forward, and you've got to get what people want.
And you've got to select the right product as well.
Yeah, I think we've done good. I mean, we've got a fair old showing at the show for the Resin Crypt stuff, so it should be pretty good, I think. But it is worrying. It must be worrying for them as much as us.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got too much stuff coming out. We've got way too much stuff coming out, I think.
Well, I've never seen you as busy.
We can always have a rest after July, can't you?
July to way too much.
No, well, because it's Christmas, isn't it? It's Christmas. It won't happen.
We've got way too much stuff. I think we need to slow down. Well, glad you've liked this, guys.
Chatting away here.
We're going to get off now. We're chatting away. We'll do another one with Gaz. It's good to see Gaz here. And Bill, we'll get him back in, and we'll get on about the kits he likes, and he can do some reviews.
Yeah, if you've got any stories stick them in the comments.
Yeah.
You know, we'd really love to hear other people's sort of nostalgias
If you've met me
about
and
the
Gaz
hobby.
and we've insulted you, or Gaz has, because I'm a perfect gentleman.
They're not
obviously,
sorry.
Then I'm sorry. Yeah.
None of us are sorry.
I'll apologise, but no, it's been good. It's been really good. So it's goodbye for me.
It's goodbye from me.
And bye from me.
From him.